What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. And isn't it hilarious how mainstream Hollywood entertainment has finally caught up to the YouTubers? The YouTubers have been saying this type of stuff for at least the last 5 to 6 years. I would say ever since The Last Jedi came out, YouTubers have been calling it out and saying, yo, Hollywood, stop. You guys are screwing this all up. You guys don't know what you're doing anymore. You're not paying attention to your fans. You're not listening to your customers. You're just churning out dreck and crap. And because people kept going to see it because it was like, well, maybe they got it right this time. All right, we'll give Star Wars another chance. Oh, look, The Rise of Skywalker did $1 billion. These guys don't know what they're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Remember that? Okay. Yeah, see what happens now? They finally figured it out. And it took The Flash and Elemental to just kind of smack some sense into these fools' heads. The Flash and Elemental flops send red alerts for two of Hollywood's biggest box office brands. Listen, it's not just for these two brands, okay? It's not just for these two box office brands for Disney or Pixar, I should say, and for DC. This is across the board. This is hitting Marvel. Because you saw what Ant-Man and the Wasp did. You saw how that went down. Disney in general, you saw how The Little Mermaid has performed. The funny thing about it is these guys will never admit to it. They'll admit there's a problem. They'll say the brands are in trouble. The brands have huge issues. But they'll never, ever admit, oh, well, this is the reason why these brands have been falling by the wayside. They'll never admit to this. Like, check this out. This article, this is on the New York Times, but it's essentially saying the exact same thing. Pixar's Elemental falls flat, adding to worries about the brand. The original animated film took in $29.5 million at the box office, by far the worst opening in Pixar's 3-decade history. The Flash from Warner Brothers also struggled. Yeah, and they really get into, Pixar for the most part, but it's hitting all the Disney brands. Like I said, it's hitting Star Wars, it's hitting Marvel, it's hitting Pixar, it's hitting just regular Disney content. It's hitting every piece of Disney. You guys will remember at one point in time, Disney had the Midas touched. Like everything it touched turned to gold. It was that kind of company. People had trust in it. People had faith in it. People believed in Disney. But what has Disney been doing to this brand? Okay, they've been absolutely destroying their brand to the point now that nobody trusts Disney. It's no longer has the Midas touch. It's like what's his name? Shigaraki. It's like My Hero Academia fans will know what I'm talking about with that. But yeah, the YouTubers have been calling this out. They've been calling this out over the last 5 to 6 years, that there is a huge brand problem, not just with Disney either, but we'll talk about Disney here, but it's with all of Hollywood. And you see here, even in the first sentence of the article, Pixar is damaged as a big screen brand. So they come right out and readily admit it, hard to sugarcoat this, says David A. Gross, a film consultant who publishes a newsletter on box office numbers. Yeah, there's no getting around this, okay? There's no lying to the public. It's right there in your face. You can't disguise it with smoke and mirrors and say all kind of other stuff, but they try, right? They try to explain away what's going on here. You can see on this next sentence here, it says, Disney had weakened the Pixar brand by using its film to build its Disney Plus streaming service. Starting in late 2020, Disney debuted 3 Pixar films in a row, Soul, Turning Red, and Luca Online, bypassing theaters altogether. And then it goes on to say, to reestablish Pixar movies as more than just Disney Plus food, the company held a premiere for Elemental at the Cannes Film Festival, right? So they took it out to a film festival. Hey, this is a film. This is not just something you watch some content for Disney Plus. This is a film. Go check it out, all right? As well as in LA at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. We've trained audiences that these films will be available for you on Disney Plus, Dr. Pixar's chief creative officer said on Friday. We're trying to make sure people realize there's a great deal you're missing by not seeing it on the big screen. So they're trying to excuse it away. Yeah, we just put all of these things out there on Disney Plus, so we trained our audiences to only look for Pixar films on Disney Plus. That's the whole kit and caboodle. That's why this stuff is struggling in theaters. That has nothing to do with it. Lightyear came out last year in theaters. Everybody knew it came out in theaters. Lightyear. And it bombed. And they used that excuse a year ago for Lightyear. And they're still trying to use this same excuse for Elemental. They simply will not admit what the problem is. They will never admit that Disney as a whole, Pixar, Lucasfilm, Marvel, that all of this comes under the umbrella of Disney, which is a woke company that puts agenda and messaging ahead of its actual entertainment. They won't admit it. They just keep dodging that question or dodging that answer. It's like, well, Disney, it must be something with the fans. It must be this. It must be that. Instead of just saying, maybe it's the content that you're making. Maybe that's the reason. They will never admit to it. Not mainstream media, but YouTubers have been saying this all along. So maybe they'll catch up with that sooner or later. We've been saying, look, it's the brand. You guys are damaging your brand. And we also explained why you're damaging the brand or how you're damaging the brand. With the woke content, with the agenda, with the message, instead of just talking about, hey, we're just here to entertain you. Let us entertain you. That's all we're here to do. We're not trying to preach and promote and teach and sermonize to you about anything. We want you to have a good time just watching a film. Just take your brain out, leave it at the door, enjoy yourself. They need to get back to that kind of content. That's the thing about it. People laugh at Jurassic World Dominion and how inane it is, and it is inane, but it made $1 billion. Why? Because it entertained people. It's dinosaurs eating people. And sometimes you just need dinosaurs eating people to have a good time at the movies. Disney and all of these other brands that have been completely and utterly damaged would pay attention to that. But who has paid attention to it? Universal. Universal is behind Jurassic World Dominion, right? They seem to understand, oh, just entertain people. Okay, got it. Universal is behind Mario, okay? And Illumination and all of that. That's a part of Universal. And they understand that with Despicable Me. Minions, it's just slapstick comedy. We're not here to teach you a goddamn thing. We're here to entertain your asses. We want you in seats, eating your popcorn and having a great time. And if there's a message that we want to give to you in this particular story or narrative, we're going to layer that so far underneath that on the initial watch, you're just going to just be entertained. And then 5 or 6 watches later, hey, you know what? I see there's a message in this movie that I didn't pick up the first 5 times that I was watching it because I was just having too much fun. And that's the problem with these cats. They don't understand how to have fun anymore, and they are just completely ruining every piece of their company. And look, how they keep going with the reasons. Films based on original stories are becoming harder sells, especially at a time when going to the movies has become more expensive and the broader economy is unsettled. I mean, that's actually true, all right? That makes sense, yeah, because people don't have the bread like they used to. People want to know that spending the money will be worth it, 100%. The animated movies that have been succeeding have been based on established characters and franchises. I mean, that goes across the board with all of the big name films, those big billion-dollar box office hits. They're always based on something that people know. That's how you get them in the door in the first place. But again, you don't have to spend $200 million on Elemental. Nobody's forcing you to spend $200 million on a brand new movie, a brand new IP, and thinking that that's going to somehow churn out some kind of major, box office number. I mean, that's insane. At this point, with everything being strapped like it is, yeah, you got to scale this back, Disney. Like Mario didn't even spend $200 million on Mario, one of the biggest franchises in history. Spend $100 million, or not even that. For Elemental, probably $50 million. You've got to scale it all the way back. Lose all the big name voice actors. Just get regular cats to voice your stuff and, go with that. And then look, you could have made 4 films, right? 4 films for $50 million for the price you spent on Elemental. And then you force your writers to actually write good content, okay? Get rid of these woke agendas and actually tell us a good story with good characters that's entertaining. And stop relying on CGI and special effects, because that's what these writers do. They just tell special effects. Oh, blow this up, blow that up. Oh, here's this crazy, amazing scene of CGI. And that's what Ant-Man was. And the story was just trash. Actually force your writers to tell a good story. And then look, if one of those 4 films, let's say you took that $200 million, you dropped it into 4 movies, okay? And one of those suckers takes off, that's when you go and you spend the bigger money. These other 3, those are just, we tried, didn't work out, scrapped. We made 3 films, that's 3 more things we could throw on Disney Plus, I guess. But ultimately, the content is just not there. And the content is really the problem. The content is ruining the brand. The brands are the brands, but they're based upon what's the content that's coming out of this thing. Marvel right now is just looking shaky as hell. You already know how I feel about Star Wars. And now Pixar, you're adding Pixar to the mix. And then, like I said, just that taints the entire Disney brand as a whole. And see, then they come up with the excuses for The Flash, right? They said it received weaker reviews and a chillier audience response, but filled enough seats to make it the #1 movie in the US and Canada. But look at this. The Flash was delayed by the pandemic, it was, but that has nothing to do with its quality, all right? Top Gun Maverick was delayed by the pandemic as well, so look how it did. Finally arriving at a moment when late night shows and crucial marketing platforms are shut down because of the writer's strike. No, No, they're going to use every excuse in the book. They'll never admit that these brands have been damaged by bad content, not just bad content, but the woke stuff. Okay, Hollywood as a whole is damaged. DC specifically, they've been damaged by all of the poor content they've put out. Okay, you know, talking about Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and Black Adam. Yeah, you know, films that just didn't resonate with the people. And I think that these two films, especially Black Adam, they failed on many, many levels, specifically by not having Shazam in Black Adam and then having Black Adam in Shazam, cross-pollinating this thing into an actual cinematic universe. I think that hurt both of these films. They should have had both of these characters playing in both films. They would have did much, much better than they did. Might not have still been box office successes, but they definitely would have gotten more butts in seats. And you know, let me say this. They're talking about like superhero fatigue right here with Warner Brothers and DC division also citing superhero fatigue as an explanation for their underperformance in their films. Let me say this. To me, when I hear superhero fatigue coming from these bigwigs, okay, they don't understand. I think in their heads, they think we could throw almost any old superhero film out there and it's going to do good numbers. And if it doesn't do good numbers, oh, there's superhero fatigue. Instead of just saying, you know what, we got to actually make a good movie. Like back in the day, you couldn't just drop a superhero movie, you know, especially before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You couldn't just drop any old superhero movie out there and it would just take off. You had to have, you know, like Spider-Man, great superhero movie, you know, the Tobey Maguire one, Batman, it was X-Men, Blade. That was kind of it in terms of really good superhero content and properties that, you know, resonated with the audiences that people went out and talked about all the time, you know, but then when like Daredevil came out, people were like, man, it was all right. You know, the Ben Affleck Daredevil, nobody was really feeling that. I actually thought it wasn't that bad. But you know, you had like all kinds of different films before the Marvel Cinematic Universe really came into its own, like, you know, Ghost Rider, like that Nick Cage Ghost Rider film. Those films weren't any good either. And there was no talk about superhero fatigue because people understood, oh, this just isn't a good movie, period, end of story. You know, it's not about the superheroes, but these executives, I think when they see all of these smaller characters, like you'll have like the Ant-Man film, Guardians of the Galaxy, Doctor Strange, you know, you see these smaller kind of unknown characters taking off and doing big things. And you're like, oh, well, people love superhero movies. Let's just go harder with the superhero movies. No, we like good stories. Okay. And Marvel had the, you know, unique opportunity to blend all of that stuff within a cinematic universe. So because it's a part of a cinematic universe, even more people will be interested in it. But if you just stand alone and nobody's really connecting to anything, that's when you get like the stuff that DC's been putting out that's just not successful because it feels like just a standalone thing that's not really connected to a universe. And because of that, yeah, nobody's really interested. So again, they got to lose it with the talk of superhero fatigue. That just doesn't fly. It's not superhero fatigue. It's bad movie fatigue. Okay. Bad movies. You're making bad movies. You're just making bad movies with superheroes. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything different than all of the other bad movies that are out there. Poor characters and poor writing. You just need to write better movies. And if you're going to have some of these smaller characters, you're going to have to, number one, make a really good movie. But then number two, you're probably going to have to connect it to a larger universe if you're going to be spending $200 million. Now, you spend $50, $60 million on it, you're probably fine. You're not putting that much at risk. Okay. You're not risking, you know, $200 million on Ant-Man and a Wasp Quantumania. Nobody's going to check for that if your cinematic universe isn't working. And since Marvel's isn't, nobody checked it out. Anyway, folks, what do y'all think about this situation? Again, the brands have been completely wrecked and damaged and not beyond repair. I think there's hope if they get rid of the woke stuff, if they just drill it back down to the simple basics of telling good stories and making good characters, they'll be fine. But if not, yeah, we're going to see more of this continue throughout the rest of the year. But you guys go ahead, jump down in the comments, give me your thoughts and opinions on that. Thanks for watching. See you next time.